Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. I was just telling today's guests I'm super excited to chat about the topic that we're going to cover today, and that is detoxification and what it really means. And not just detoxification, we're going to talk about several different things, including enzymes, which is another thing that I absolutely love talking about because I think there's so much misinformation out there about both detoxification and enzymes. People don't even really understand what those do most of the time. And it's so important for our overall health and well-being. So I want to introduce today's guest, who is Dr. Ellen Cutler, and she's a best-selling author and an internationally recognized teacher, public speaker, and media spokesperson. She has a chiropractic degree and specializes in the use of desensitization. Whoa, I'm going to try that again. I cannot say that word. Desensitization of food and other sensitivities, gentle detoxification, and enzyme and nutritional therapies for chronic conditions that have perplexed the conventional medical establishment. This is all addressed in her revolutionary healing technique, ECM, Ellen Cutler Method, available at the website drellencutler.com. Welcome.
It's great to be here. The connection's a little off, so
Okay, gotcha.
I hope we're okay connected here.
Sounds good right now. I can always work with and edit things if it goes in and out. So yeah, we're all good.
Excellent. Great.
So yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to kind of kick off with, let's start really basic, because as I mentioned, in the intro, that I think the word detox and detoxification from there has gotten a bad rap in sort of the mainstream media, allopathic medicine, because it's this idea of just, I don't know, you're going to juice and all is well and good. And they don't, agree with that kind of a thing. And it's really the basis of keeping us healthy, our detoxification systems, right? So let's start there and kind of break that down for people, what it's all about.
Great. Well, first of all, my technique, ECM, is a 3-part process.
Gotcha.
And the first part of it is adequate organ-specific detoxification. And what I tell my clients is that's the first thing I look at. We have organs in our body that do this naturally. We have the lungs, so we need to breathe and exercise. We have the colon, so we need to keep our gut healthy and elimination well. We have the lymph. And of course, we have besides the respiratory, our kidneys, urinary system. These are all, and the liver, help in the process and need to be working adequately. So I'm one of these people, these doctors that really want the body to work and do what needs to do perfectly.
Yeah.
And rather than giving things, but sometimes that is necessary. We live in a toxic world. There was just a whole thing over the last week about these PAH, forever chemicals, that basically they said 99% of our water is toxic.
So sad. It is so sad.
Yeah. And many people cannot afford filters that are adequate filters, because many of the filters you can pick up really don't get rid of these forever chemicals, if any of them do.
Right. I was like, definitely not Brita. I know people are like, oh, well, I have a Brita. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's making it taste a little bit better, and that's about all that it's doing.
I know. One of my patients lives in Mount Shasta, and whenever she comes to see me from there, I'm in Marin County. It's about a 5-6 hour drive. Please bring their water. Honestly, people say, I don't drink water. If you drank that water, you would love it, and you would drink it all the time.
Yeah, no doubt.
And drinking an adequate amount of water is paramount. That's the first thing for detoxification. It's really important because there's no organ or cell in the body that does not benefit. And honestly, when you're actually thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So what I do is I work all day, work long days. Every 30 minutes, I'll take a big sip of water. if you
Cheers to
can
that.
do that. And
Mhm.
keep doing that. We'll do
Yep.
that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody
I was
take a
like,
sip of
everybody,
it.
cheers. Yeah.
So I don't like to say the first part of my testing is I look at how the body's detoxifying. And I don't like to say that you're toxic because people say, do you mean I'm a toxic person? I don't know. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
So I mean that your body's not adequately detoxifying. And some of your symptoms are reflective of that. And hormones are a big thing too.
Mhm.
Probably every system of the body, depending on your genetics or your lifestyle or who you are, that specific organ will be the one that is stressed
Mhm.
and compromised if your body's not detoxifying adequately. Women, it's hormones a lot. I think we're karmically, I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. Yeah.
hormones are a big deal for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And
And
it's,
that's
yeah,
that.
they're so sensitive, right? And so all of these chemicals in our environment and on top of the stress that we experience, I mean, it just compounds this, the hormones go a little bit this way or that way and things aren't good, right? Because they are that Goldilocks situation. Yeah.
And also one of the things I have found that toxicity, not detoxing, can make you feel more stressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always remember, and I've written about this in the book, when I went through a divorce, it was a really stressful time for me. I've had other things in my life that were stressful. That was when I was just more of an adult, I remember.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the thing that helped me the most was eating right,
Mhm.
exercising every day, even though sometimes I didn't want to even get out of bed,
Yep. Yeah.
and helping the body detoxify. And
Yeah.
honestly, probably you look beautiful. I'm sure you're very fit. You exercise. Exercising is so important.
100%. And I tell women over 40, I think a lot of times we've had this idea that we exercise in order to keep our bodies looking a certain way. But I really see it with my clients over 40 and in myself. It's so much a part of your mental health too,
Yeah.
right? And that is going to impact your whole body systems. And so we really, different people need different types of movement for sure. If you're absolutely exhausted, you don't necessarily need to go out and do some but even just getting out and walking is going to make such a huge
Exactly.
difference. Yeah.
I know myself. Sometimes I'll get up in the morning and and I think I have such a long day. And it's not that, but I feel a little stressed.
Yeah.
I love my Peloton. I do use a
Yeah.
Peloton. Ever since the pandemic, I bought that Peloton and I love it. I always feel so good
Yeah.
after. It's
Absolutely.
not easy all the
Yeah.
time. My
No.
daughter always says, which spin did you do in the morning? Was it hard? They're all hard.
Right. Right.
But
Exactly.
I feel so good after it's
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning. I know the endorphins, but I can't
Mhm.
believe the difference in the change.
Yeah.
Just getting the circulation, exercising. So I'm with you. I think it's
Mhm.
really important. Not
Mhm.
only to look good, which is nice, because I think when you look good in the mirror, if you feel better about yourself,
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever your body, wherever it's supposed to be for yourself, right? There's different bodies for everyone, but if you keep moving it and you keep nourishing it, you're going to land at your good spot and you're going to
yes,
feel better because
definitely.
of that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I look at too is digestion. I'm passionate about digestion.
Mhm.
And my motto is it's not only what you eat, it's what you digest and absorb.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent, my most passionate aspect of my life
Mhm.
as a doctor and in my work is digestive enzymes,
Mhm.
because we don't chew our food well. We don't have those products, those nutrients that help enzyme formation
Mhm.
in our foods these days.
Mhm.
And we're not benefiting from that good, healthy food that we spend a lot of money on buying. So, and digestion is good because if you don't digest your food, undigested food will get into the bloodstream, and that can be a toxicity
Yeah.
or can cause allergies or sensitivities, intolerances. And then you wonder, are you bloated all the time,
Mhm.
or you feel fatigue, you just lethargic, you don't have the energy to exercise, your brain fog is more, you feel that. that so much can change by good digestion and helping the gut, because the gut is the center of all the body's functions, healthy functions.
Absolutely, 100%. And, I talk to my clients about this all the time. I went through a surgery. People that have listened to the podcast for a while know about this. I went through a fibroid removal surgery and then knowingly burned me in 3 places in my intestines during that surgery. Yeah, it was my first surgery ever. I landed in the ER with sepsis 2 weeks later. I ended up
Oh
losing
my
half
God.
of my colon, about 8 inches of small intestine, the whole shebang, right? So I mean, I already knew how important gut health was before that, but I was lucky enough. I had an ostomy bag for about 6.5 months. I was lucky enough to be able to be reversed. And so there has been a lot of healing on my gut ever since then, right? And I will always be compromised now because of having half of the colon that I had before, right? So this is why I really focus on digestive supports, enzymatic supports, HCl, all of those things. You want to make sure that you're really supporting your digestive system to break your food down well and absorb the nutrients from it, right? And as you mentioned, sensitivities, food sensitivities, so much of that comes from not digesting the food well and it entering your bloodstream where it's not supposed to be. So then we have inflammatory reactions, and so again and again, I have to bring my clients back to, when we have hormone issues, you got to bring it back to the gut first and foremost, because that's causing
Absolutely.
a lot of the inflammatory reactions that your hormones are responding to, essentially, so I am so there. So let's break down what enzymes are for people and what they do exactly.
So enzymes are protein. And I always like to start, there are 3 different kinds of enzymes. There's digestive enzymes that our body produces in our stomach, our pancreas, etc.
Mhm.
Then there's metabolic enzymes, which literally every organ of the body, the immune system, the repair system, the brain, the kidneys, the liver, all depend on metabolic enzymes for them to run and work efficiently.
Mhm.
And then there are food enzymes.
Mm.
So there are enzymes in whole plant foods.
Mhm.
Okay, they're not in meat, they're in whole plant foods. And that's why I highly recommend eating as much as you can a whole plant food diet. Even if you're a vegan, a lot of people I'm a vegan, a lot of people will eat a lot of carbs
Right.
and other things, but you want to get that whole plant food. That's very important.
Mhm.
So you can't really replace your metabolic enzymes and you can't replace your digestive enzymes, but you can help with food enzymes.
Mhm.
Like I said before, because our soil has been so over agriculturized,
Mhm.
we don't have the cofactors that make those enzymes in our raw food that we did maybe 1,000 years ago, etc. So most of the population is enzyme deficient.
Mhm.
But what happens is if you're not digesting food, you don't have those food enzymes, your body will borrow those other enzymes from your pancreas, from your metabolism to digest your food. And guess what? Your immune system suffers, it's compromised, and you wonder why you get sick more often. Your hormones are like off and for
All over the
women,
place.
when their hormones are off, it's devastating.
Absolutely. It's
Women,
everything. It's
yeah,
everything.
women, their hair will fall out,
Yep.
they'll have sweats, hot flashes,
Yeah.
they can't deal with their children, they're agitated, their sleep is terrible.
Yeah.
These are all, side effects of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So my story quickly, because that will help understand.
Yeah.
I had a very bad experience also with colitis. So interesting
Oh.
enough, I was diagnosed with colitis when I was in chiropractic school because it was so stressful. I had to work and support myself. So I would go to school, work in a hospital, and then at night study. So I didn't sleep hardly at all. And I always
Wow.
wanted to exercise. So I got up and run. I couldn't eat anything. I was allergic to every food. I only thing I could eat was grapes. So I got evaluated with a barium X-ray. At that time, that's what they did. They didn't do
Mm.
colonoscopies. They did barium, and they said you have colitis, ulcerative colitis,
Mm.
and you need to go on steroids. And probably at some point you might have to have surgery, or you'll end up with cancer. And here I am in chiropractic school, and
Right.
I've been told that. And you know what precipitated it, I believe, for me? There's, of course, genetics
Yeah.
there,
Yep.
but every dinner time, my brother, I have a twin brother, we would eat. My parents would fight. My mother would sit there and cry, and my father would leave.
Mm.
So, big cause of food sensitivities, emotions.
Trauma.
That's why I
Absolutely.
don't like to go. People ask me come out to dinner on business. I rather not eat. I want to eat when I'm happy and relaxed, not when
Yeah.
I'm discussing business.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
because I don't
point.
want
Yeah.
to ever be that way again. So
Yeah.
anyway, long story short, I took a postgraduate course in orthopedics, met one of my mentors. He said he knew what I was suffering from. He said, "Did you ever try this digestive enzyme? It's a full spectrum digestive enzyme that has all the enzymes that digest carbs
Mhm.
and protein and fats, and it has cellulase in it. See how you do." And that
Mhm.
time, nobody heard about enzymes. It wasn't on the
Mm.
radar at all. It was
Mhm.
foreign. I took that digestive enzyme. Within 2 weeks, never had any problem again.
Wow.
And
That's
I
amazing.
was 32 years old. Now I'm a little bit older.
Just a little.
And but what happened also is I noticed all these other changes.
Yeah.
Hormones were amazing, were
Mhm.
different. I had never had PMS anymore. It was crazy.
Mhm.
I had so much energy. My skin and hair, nails, everything was, I mean, I noticed a change. It was
Mhm.
a miracle. That's why the name of my book, which is released today. So I'm so excited.
Oh,
Finally,
that's so
my updated book is updated. It's coming
sweet.
out this afternoon,
Oh my
finally.
goodness.
And
Congrats.
it's called Micro Miracles,
Mhm.
the healing power of enzyme, discover the healing power of enzyme.
Mhm.
So anyway, I decided to give all my patients enzymes because as a chiropractic practice, I don't care if they came in with sprains, headaches, they got an enzyme, and I
Mhm.
saw miracles. That's why this book
Mm.
came out. So
Mm.
I've been passionate about enzymes. Anyone I know, meet, goes on a digestive. Even at any age, even if you don't take it with every meal, at least once a day will
Mhm.
change your life,
Mm.
truly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway, I had to, because you told me your story, which I'm so sorry to hear, because I hear a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
Trust me. Been in
Yeah.
practice for 45 years. I've heard so many
So
stories.
many stories. Yeah.
And
And
you're so young and beautiful. And for you to have that, I'm sure it was, I can't even imagine how devastating that was for you.
it
But you look great.
Well, thank you. It was life-changing, but it got me on this path of wanting to educate
Yes.
women around hormones, right? Because
Yeah,
when it
I
came
agree.
down to it, it said I asked myself, why did I have a fibroid in the first place? That's a hormonal imbalance. Where did that come from? And so because up to, 80% of women will have a fibroid by the time they're 50. So, our system is like, cut it out or go on estrogen suppressing drugs, and a
Right.
lot of times it's straight to cut it out. And there's other ways, as we know, to
So one thing I have found
Mhm. Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of women with fibroids. I had a
Mhm.
fibroid too, got rid
Mhm.
of it naturally.
Mhm.
Women tend to be sensitive, and I say allergic, but I mean sensitive to their own hormones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're sensitive to estrogen,
Mhm.
it can cause fibroids or
Yep.
ovarian cysts.
Yep. Yep.
So one of the
Absolutely.
things I treat for with my ECM work is to
Mhm.
clear the sensitivity to hormones.
Nice.
And it's incredible for fibroids,
Yeah.
for PMS, for dysmenorrhea,
Yeah.
and amenorrhea as well, and even for infertility too, by the way. I've had stories and stories and stories I could tell you forever. But it's interesting that, and it's
Yeah.
usually an estrogen issue.
It's
And it's usually
100%.
a sensitivity. And of course,
Yeah.
if you eat foods that have estrogen, you're even more prone to this
Absolutely.
kind of situation.
I definitely want to dive into that more because I think that's super important. But before we move on from
Yes.
enzymes, I'm curious because I know that there are, the enzymes that we take when we eat food in order to help better digest and absorb the nutrients. And then we can also take enzymes away from food, right? And can you talk about the differences there and what each of them help?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're all really digestive enzymes, but
Hmm.
that's such a great question. And I talk about that in my book quite a bit and I
Hmm.
use it. So there are digestive enzymes, which I love a full spectrum digestive enzyme, like I said, that have all the enzymes for digesting all the foods. And sometimes, just one thing, sometimes people are sensitive to protease, which is the enzyme digest protein,
Right.
and can get a little GI stress or reflux. I have some enzymes on my website. One of them doesn't have protease, has peptidase in it, and it also has DGL, diglyceridized licorice, and some other things that help the body, help soothe the stomach or esophagus, as well as digest your food. And it's like a miracle, really.
Fantastic. Because so many people have upper GI issues.
Right,
absolutely. Yeah.
But what's so great, and I'm so happy you brought it up, because there are certain enzymes that you take in between that do other things. So one of them is protease, which I think is one of the most, it's so miraculous what it can do, and so not talked about in the literature. And so if it's taken in between, it can kill protein. It destroys protein that can cause allergies or other kinds of issues. It's anti-inflammatory. It helps with sleep. It's anti-anxiety. It's a great one for people who suffer with a lot of anxiety, and also actually eats up tumor cells too. If taken in between. So I've been doing it for years and years, take at least 1 to 3 protease in between meals too, as well as taking it with meals, because it digests your protein. The other thing is, I work with a company and I even help put them together. There are enzyme-based supplements that do other things. So for example, when you put an herb in with an enzyme, it catalyzes the reaction of that herb. So let's say somebody out there suffers a lot with kidney urinary tract infections. And to try to avoid maybe taking antibiotics, because sometimes they don't work. And I think sometimes the body doesn't respond to them. There's like a kidney urinary tract enzyme that has certain herbs in it with an enzyme that helps catalyze it. And it works so well. So I have a lot of women that take it regularly just to help prevent kidney problem or infections, even some incontinence it helps with too. And then there's ones for liver, and there's ones for asthma, respiration too. So that's really great. So I like these products because they have the enzymes in it that help the body utilize those specific herbs that will help do what it needs to do for certain parts of the body.
That's fascinating. And it made me think about one of my clients who is prone to UTIs, post hysterectomy. And we've been trying to kind of figure out how, prophylactically to kind of keep these at bay. So I feel like that would be a wonderful thing to do, similar to like the kidney support, using some kind of herb like that along with the enzymes. Are these sold on your website? Are these formulas?
I have my own digestive enzymes and some other products, but if they call our office, which is on the website there, we can get that for them too. Yeah. And especially for you, you can definitely call. We can help you with that. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that.
This kidney urinary enzyme is so effective. I've never seen it not work.
That's amazing. I mean,
and it also helps people who have hypertension too, because kidneys can be secondary hypertension, could be as a result of kidneys. So it's also good for people who deal with hypertension. It can help them as well.
Right. Absolutely. Well, since we were talking about fibroids, I do have to ask what you think about using. I know a lot of times serapeptase, I believe, is one of the ones that's recommended. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but utilizing those away from foods. Have you seen that help to break down fibroids?
Yes. So serapeptase is so similar to protease. So in my testing, my ECM testing, I have a way of testing what's the best thing for you. So I will test, does the protease work better or the serapeptase? But I use serapeptase a lot too as well. So they go hand in hand for different, and as an anti-inflammatory, definitely too. But the big thing with fibroid is really this estrogen issue too.
100%.
I mean, I've never not had good results with it. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. And let's talk more about that because I think, people may not quite understand what we're talking about,
Right.
and are you utilizing muscle testing in this process of determining, and then how do you desensitize people from
Yeah.
estrogen and other things? So let's
Yeah.
talk about
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
So I started out with muscle testing because I
Hmm.
studied that as a chiropractor. But I felt like, I'm so devoted to what I do. It's like 24/7. I felt like I needed some other computerized system that
Mm-hmm.
had a lot more information because there's only so much you can do with a muscle test and muscle gets fatigued. So
Right.
I traveled all over the world and I found a machine that I have right here. It's called the Avatar. It's based on the Vol method, which is electromagnetic testing, meridian testing
Okay.
that I used. And by working with other people, I created my own program and my own technique, how to utilize that with a program that I have thousands of items, libraries to test. And
Amazing.
I have a protocol, the ECM, how somebody who learns it, how to navigate somebody who comes in. So let's say you came in with fibroids.
Hmm.
I would put you on the machine. First thing I would do is see how your body's detoxifying
Hmm.
and either recommend things we talked about or other homeopathics or herbs. And a
Hmm.
lot of times people have things at home that they got and they don't know, they can start using it in the
Yeah.
way that they're supposed to.
Right.
So I recommend that. Then I look at the gut, I look at digestion, how their body's digesting, recommend a full spectrum digestive enzyme.
Hmm.
Most of the time, a full spectrum will work with, I would say, 80% of the
Hmm.
population. Some people need ones that are more protein
Mm.
digestion, that have a little bit more protease or peptidase. Some people need more for fat, more lipase in there to help digest their fats, which, by the way, has a lot to people who have thyroid problems always have trouble digesting fat.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they
that makes
might need
sense.
that. And
Yeah.
sometimes a full spectrum. And then they have people that are carbohydrate intolerant, which I was. And our full spectrum digestive enzyme that I have on my website is really for that person too, as
Mm,
well. So it covers
interesting.
all the digestive enzymes.
Yeah.
In fact, the new one that just came out now has some more maltase, which digests maltose, and of
Mhm.
course all the disaccharidases. So people who are lactose intolerant, et cetera, do very well on this enzyme because
Gotcha.
lactose is a disaccharidase.
Mm.
So that's the second part. And then I look at all the food sensitivities. And trust me, 80% of the people have food sensitivities they didn't even know.
Right.
And if you crave food, sure enough, that's the food you're most sensitive to.
It's so
So
true.
if you're craving sourdough bread, you're probably sensitive to carbs. If you're
Mm-hmm.
craving, by the way, if you're craving salt, those are people who don't digest fat very well, by the way.
Mm. Oh,
So I'm sure that it'll
interesting.
stir up some people that say, you
Yeah.
crave protein, you don't digest protein. But
Right.
most people crave sugar. That's
Yeah.
why most people are carbohydrate intolerant.
Right.
Okay. And then I have a protocol. I look at what's underneath those fibroids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it emotions? Is it hormones? Is it toxicity? Is it genetic? Is it neurotransmitters? Is it a bacteria or a virus that maybe you had 30 years ago?
Right.
Energetically, you're still reacting to it.
100%. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the thing is too is every person is individual. It's tailored to them. You might be very different than so and so who comes in. But what I've seen with fibroids, usually you're sensitive to estrogen.
Yeah. That makes
And
perfect sense. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
so
And
I find that out and I have a way of desensitizing. It's an acupressure technique
okay.
that actually retrains the brain in not being allergic anymore, not being sensitive. Usually one treatment will work.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yes.
So, do you still see people one on one at this point? Or
Well, I teach.
you teach?
I have no room for
I was
people
gonna
for,
say, I
yeah.
thought you were probably a little
But
too busy for
I
that.
do things, I do things on Zoom too. You can do it.
Okay.
There's a way to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm teaching, so I want people to study. I
Yeah.
used to teach a long time ago, and the company, the technique before this called Bioset, I
Mhm.
lost
Mm.
that company and I
Mm.
was traumatic. I had
Oh,
PTSD for 12 years.
oh, I
So
bet.
now I'm finally done, and now I'm starting to teach again because
Yeah.
I really want people to learn it. There's no technique like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to ask, when you teach people, do they have to do it in person, or is it something that they
It's
can
all Zoom.
do? It's
It's
all
all
over Zoom.
Zoom.
Okay. So that's fantastic, right?
It's
Because so many of
wonderful.
us are doing things
And
in
I
Zoom.
teach everyone now. I used to just do health practitioners.
Yeah.
Now I teach everyone. I found after the pandemic, people, especially moms, they want
Hmm.
to learn what they can do at home for their
Yes.
self and for their family.
Yeah.
And so I have all these mothers that are studying with me, and they are amazing. They're
That's
doing so well. So it's
Honestly, that's
great.
fabulous. And I think, I talk about this sometimes on the podcast, but maybe not enough. My whole goal with this podcast really is to empower women around understanding their hormones, right? Because we've been taught very little about our hormones, if at all, and
Yeah,
there's so many women coming to me in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and saying, why didn't I ever, learn this information? But I do believe we're moving into a time where we really have to empower ourselves around our health on all of the levels, right?
absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
like what you're talking about is so impactful to understand how to muscle test, how to understand how to clear these things, because yeah, so much of it is, we're missing the energetic level of a lot of
Exactly.
stuff.
Exactly.
And so you can do all the
Exactly.
physical things. And if you're missing that energetic level, then you're missing such a huge part of your health, And so I love that you're teaching
Thank you so much. Yes.
everyone, because it's like we have to sort of take back our power around our health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something like COVID.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have seen, that's why I love that you brought up energetic. Even though you say negative, you're negative now, you're okay.
Mhm.
I find sometimes still people are energetically sensitive to COVID
100%. I would
on
totally
all
agree.
these different levels, and I can test which levels they are. And it could be even emotional, mental.
Yeah.
Like you could be afraid of a condition energetically
Mhm.
that needs to be cleared because that's impacting your health
Mhm, mhm,
energetically, right?
absolutely, and I'll circle that back to the fibroids, because
Exactly. I was
so
just going to
many
say that.
women, right, like, they have a myomectomy or just have the fibroids removed, and they come back so much of the time, and I do think a lot of that has to do with sort of that energetic, that's still there. That energy's still there even though the physical fibroid is gone, and so we
It's
have to
so
remove that.
interesting. Early on, a long time ago, where there was a doctor, I used to refer them to if they needed surgery. He always made sure I cleared them for all the anesthetics.
Oh,
He
that's
and I were,
great.
he understood exactly what I did and cleared the estrogen. He
Yes.
completely understood what my technique was about. And it was so wonderful. And so we would work together.
Yeah.
He's no longer around, but I
That
I loved the fact that that was part of it, and people appreciated it so much
Well,
too.
and
Mhm.
that's what we need more of, right? Is the true integration. If
Yes.
you do have to go into surgery, or you do have to do these things, to have this support on these other levels that we're really missing out
Yeah.
on, And I mean, I'm glad you brought up anesthesia, because as I said, I'd never had a surgery before, so I didn't realize how my body reacted to anesthesia until 3 surgeries later, and it reacts horribly to anesthesia,
And it
you know,
stays in your
and it
system. People
stays. Yeah.
like, people sometimes need to be cleared on that it could take a couple of times to be cleared
Yeah.
because they'll notice their brain's not working right, they're
Yep.
depressed, that's a big one. They're
Yep.
depressed, they're irritated, they're not themselves.
Yep.
And it's
Absolutely.
and it's not so much the surgery, it's the
Yeah.
anesthesia that
Yes,
they
absolutely.
yeah.
People don't think about how powerful these drugs
Mhm.
are, essentially, that are putting us completely under, and yet
Yes.
we're
Right.
we're still alive. And so no, I it was interesting for me, because I didn't realize it the first time, but after the second or third time, whenever I woke up, I was so nauseous that even the anti-nausea meds that they were giving me did not work at all,
Right.
and so this is something that I would know for the future going into a
Right.
surgery, and I understand better how to set my body up now than I did
Yes.
then. But I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think there's so many surgeries that are done all the time, and we think, oh, it's no big deal. It's an in and out in one day kind of thing, or even colonoscopies. They do anesthesia and everything
Right.
for.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right. And just going, they said, we're just going to give you a little, just,
yeah,
the
yep,
I forgot what it's called, but just that's still anesthesia.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're still out.
You're still out. Exactly.
It's really, well, I'm not doing general. I'm doing what do they call that? I forget.
Yeah.
Twilight. That's still anesthesia.
Exactly. It's like,
that's what I have found.
yeah.
It's interesting because a long time ago when I was working with this guy, he was the only one that did myomectomies. No, but they all did hysterectomies for fibroids. They never did it wasn't even
an option.
Wasn't at all.
Yeah.
He was the only doctor. That's how I found him.
Interesting.
And yeah, that he was. So that was, now it's different, but then they didn't do it.
Yeah.
No. Well, women just get a history. What's the difference?
I mean, they still kind of push it. If you are,
oh, is that right?
If either you're done with having kids or they think that you're done with having kids, then they say get a hysterectomy because the fibroids will grow back. Essentially, I had to fight to get a myomectomy because I didn't want kids, and they were like, "Well, what's the point of you keeping your uterus?" And I'm like, I mean,
of course.
That's a different story for another day. But
exactly.
I love that we're bringing together all of these different ways that, you can utilize these processes. Let's go back a little bit to the detoxification aspect, because I would love to hear sort of what you see maybe most often in terms of the parts of the body that need the most support. Like in my practice, I see a lot of need for liver support. I think when the hormones are off, the liver. But yeah, go ahead and tell us what you see.
So when I evaluate, I have like a scale. I look at the scale of how their body, the toxic load, we call it, and then based on that, I look at the organs and meridians that are involved with it. And yes, more often than not, liver is definitely one of them. And one of the symptoms of liver is a headache right on top of the head. If someone says, I have a headache like that, that's usually liver too. So livers too. And I look at, with my detoxification process, I will look at the different parts of the detox of the liver, phase 1 and phase 2. And forgetting about methylation is really important too. And again, there's many people, probably more people than not, that don't realize it. They have a methylation issue, and that's genetic. And
absolutely.
MTHF, and so looking at that too, and also helping clear some of those pathways and utilizing certain other things that I recommend, like, that help the B vitamins that help in the methylation too. And I love, for the liver, I love milk thistle too. I like to do gentle detox. I use certain homeopathics that help with liver detoxification too. And then there are certain companies that I've used also that help with it. But I look and try to, again, be gentle, because you'll get some detoxification symptoms, which are not fun.
100%.
Yes, 100% too. And, and one of the things too that I had forgotten to mention is that if one of the or two of the detoxification areas are not working, it puts stress on your other areas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, sometimes people, one of my first successes in my work years and years ago was with asthma. And because there are different kinds of asthma, there's allergy related, and then there's other related that they don't relate to allergy. But my understanding of allergy is much broader. So I look at it all as allergy. So even though the chemical is causing an asthma attack, they don't consider that an allergy, as an allergen. I do. And it can be cleared. So I have had unbelievable success with asthma in my practice from day one. That's why I wrote a book on asthma.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I have found is that in order to help reduce the stress on the respiratory system, you got to keep the colon happy.
100. Yes.
They are definitely colons.
Yeah.
If you're
first and foremost,
if you're constipated all the time, you're gonna have other symptoms that are as a result of it. And if your weakness is the respiration,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have asthma symptoms. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're putting in your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
as well as not eliminating, is big. And a lot of people don't eliminate well.
I
And
know.
things like colonics are fine, but they're not getting to the root of it. Like,
No.
why are you constipated? Hormones are a big deal for constipation.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, we always look at the gut when I work with women, because I would say probably 75% of my clients tend
Absolutely.
towards constipation, right? And it
Great.
makes perfect sense that there is a hormone issue, because I always say with hormones, we want to use it and move them out, right?
Right. That's right.
And if
That's
your
right.
colon's not working well and things aren't moving out, then that just gives it a chance, particularly estrogen, to
Yes.
recirculate in the system, and then the liver
Yeah,
has to
it's
do
so
its job
important.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right
Yep.
too. So I look at the different kidneys are another one too,
Mm-hmm.
especially if people are on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the liver
And you're
needs to
talking
be
about over-the-counter drugs as well as
yeah,
illegal
drugs,
drugs. Mhm,
drugs. Yeah. I'm not a
mm,
fan of drugs,
mhm,
period. But
mhm,
understandably, I'm not one of these people. If I didn't put you on a drug, I don't take you off of it.
mhm,
And I don't put people on drugs.
mhm.
But if they're on it, their detoxification is compromised,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
Whatever drug you're on. I don't care. They say, well, it doesn't really. They say it doesn't pass through the liver. I don't believe anything.
Exactly. I'm like, everything passes through the
Through
liver.
the liver. So kidneys are important too.
Yep.
So looking at how to help those kidneys, and of course drinking water is the most
Mhm,
important.
mhm,
Not drinking alcohol or
mhm,
reducing the amount of
mhm.
alcohol has an effect on the liver and the
The
kidney
kidneys.
too.
Yeah,
And process and pesticides too are
yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
so
glyphosate. Oh, I can't even get started on that one. But
yeah,
I'm glad you brought up the kidneys, because I think that's often forgotten,
right,
and it is such an important process alongside the liver. Really, they
right,
work together so
yeah,
much,
right,
and so I think sometimes we don't really see the kidney issues until they're much, further on, because we don't necessarily know the
yeah,
symptoms that
exactly,
are
right,
showing up. So
right,
I'm glad that you brought that up. It's so fascinating to me, because as we talked about in the beginning, our bodies are set up to detoxify, right? Between our liver and our colon and our kidneys and our skin even.
right,
And so I think so many people so much of the time are like, well, our bodies are just naturally doing this. Why do I have to concern myself with it? And when you look at 90% of diseases, it comes back to not being able to detoxify well,
that's
for
right,
all the things that you brought up, the genetics, the genetic issue. So for people that don't understand, methylation is just another way of detoxifying, essentially,
right,
right?
right,
Breaking things down
exactly,
and moving out. We live in a very heavily chemical environment at
right,
this point, right? And so we're having to deal with all of these things
right,
more than ever in history. And
right.
so we just need to understand that we have to kind of take it to the next level of really honoring our body and utilizing, so many things that you've brought up today. And that's got to be a consistent thing, you know?
Yeah, and and the thing is that many people don't eat well.
Yeah. So you got to start there. You got to start there,
Got to start there.
Yeah.
It's like what's at the end of your fork.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
really important.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and the other thing also, the teeth are,
Yes.
because that's a
Shows everything.
source. People there can be viruses and
Yes.
parasites and fungus in your mouth
In your mouth.
too,
I know, and that's
not
where it
just the
starts so much of the
colon.
time,
Yeah,
right? And it
right.
shows
Yeah.
you what's
So
going on in your gut a lot of the times too,
so
yeah.
taking care of your teeth
Yeah.
is
It's yeah, yep,
extremely
yep.
important
And
as
and
well.
I'll just add in there for a lot of people, because I think that this isn't in sort of that mainstream information as much. Root canals are not the best option, because that's really
Mm,
where bacteria can easily get set in there, and you don't even realize that you have an infection, right? Until way later. Yeah.
exactly, right.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's one of the things I test too that will come up. A
mm,
lot of people that do work similar to what I do, that's who I studied with, was dentists. Is so interesting.
mm,
I searched all over to learn how to test for food sensitivities because I
mhm,
knew that was the core. For most people, just doing that alone and
mhm.
clearing foods will change their life and getting on an
Absolutely.
enzyme. Because if
Mhm.
you take an enzyme, it can clear a lot of sensitivities, just that in
Mhm.
itself.
Yeah. It's
But
like
I went
cleaning
to,
up, right? It's
yeah,
kind of like
right.
cleaning up
Yeah,
everything.
right. Yeah. I went to this seminar with dentists,
Hmm.
and I walked in there, right? All dentists. And I have a medical degree too. So I mix with all these different people, right?
Yeah.
And they had no teeth.
Oh my goodness. Isn't
They
that
would smile, they had no teeth. I swear, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, if you remember the Twilight
You're
Zone,
like,
or a
what's going
horror
on here?
movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have no teeth. So instead of getting root canal, they had their teeth pulled.
Oh, wow. I
So
mean,
then literally every dentist there had very little teeth. I don't know how they ate.
that's so fascinating, right? It's
It
like,
was like when
I
I
don't want to
think
go
back
get my
on it.
hair cut from
Right.
somebody who has
So
bad hair.
one of the things I told my kids, please take care of your teeth.
Yes. Yeah.
Please. It's important.
Absolutely.
It's not
Absolutely.
something I know getting cleaning and all that, but you got to do it at home yourself.
Yes. Every
You
day.
know,
100. Yep.
so it's
Yep.
because those teeth bugs can cause heart problems.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to share with everyone, because I know some people are going to be excited in, terms of training themselves
Yeah.
how to use
Please.
your method.
I want people to train.
So how's the best way for them to, sign up for this?
So go on my website,
Mhm.
drellencutler.com, and I talk all about it. And
Okay.
then they can talk to my assistant,
Mhm.
Cynthia. And the next training is in the beginning of November. And
Okay, great.
getting filled up. And I don't like to do too many. I used to teach to hundreds of people. On Zoom, it's easier to just,
Smaller group.
I enjoy it so much, and I really want people to learn, and
Mhm.
they do so well. So
Mhm.
you can learn all about it. And I have some enzymes there that I recommend. They're called Dr. Ellen's Way
Mhm.
enzymes, and also have some detox products, etc., and
Great.
powder and protein powders too, all vegan stuff too.
Great.
So and my book, Micro Miracles, again, is should be on Amazon by the end of today. I'm so excited.
Perfect.
And the new one, because there's an
Yeah.
old one on there, but the new one. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll be so wonderful. It'll have been out for a little while by the time this episode comes out, but
good,
people will be
great.
able to go on and get it then,
Yeah.
Can I ask how long the training program is?
It's 3 days.
3 days. Oh,
And
okay.
that's the
Nice.
basic
Okay.
introductory. And then I do advanced training, and I do
Gotcha.
follow up, and I help you out, but
Great.
it's all day Friday, all day Saturday, and a half. It's actually 2.5 days of training. Oh,
Great.
and then there's a training before on the machine that they get too. That's another
Okay.
that they do with someone else who trains
Gotcha.
them on the machine.
Okay, perfect. Oh, this has been such a fun, illuminating
This is great.
conversation. I
This has
really
been
have
great. I
enjoyed it.
loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So, definitely let's keep in touch, and as you do more and more of these, I know that I'm gonna do one of these trainings. I don't know if I can in November, but I definitely want to do
Oh,
one
I would
next year
love
if it
it. It
does.
would be
Yeah,
great. And
100%.
you're so and you're so beautiful. I'm so sorry
Oh,
you went
thank
through
you.
all that, but
It it got it
you're on the
clarified. Yeah, it
yeah,
clarified, right? And I
you're
think,
on the road to health always now,
yeah,
and now you
yeah.
know what to do.
Exactly. And I think, most of us, just like you have your story, most of us that do this kind of
Right.
practicing of support or medicine or what have you, have been through our own trials, right? That's what got us on this path.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, you
Bye.
guys, I will see you next week.
Bye.